Now, before we go on with the episode, I just wanted to give a heads up that there will be a break in the amount of time between this episode and the next. That's because my family is moving literally across the country. And so I'm going to need some time to get settled and get everything in the right place before I continue on in releasing episodes of the podcast. They are in the works, they are on standby, they just won't be coming in succession. So please make sure that you subscribe or follow this podcast so that you don't miss out when I post the next episode. Also, if you're enjoying what you're listening to with this podcast, please do me a favor and rate it. You can rate it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, I believe. And you can do whatever rating you want, but a 5-star rating would be great. It helps the podcast to get more visibility and get more people to listen to the story, which is really important to me. All right, let's get into the episode. Welcome back to the Beauty for Ashes podcast. I'm your host, Destiny Ireland, and we're working our way through the book of Matthew. In the last episode, we went to the origin, diving into Tiny's early life and how he got started with his career. His siblings talked about his strong identity and how he always knew what he wanted to do. It was clear from the beginning that nothing was going to get in the way of him becoming a barber. By the time he was only 20 years old, he was the owner, not a resident, an owner of a barbershop. That alone is a huge deal. But Tiny was just beginning to make a name for himself in the Brass City. In this episode, we look further into the qualities that made him so special as a business owner, but also as an individual. Join me as we begin chapter 2 of the book of Matthew. Okay, I have to be honest. When trying to put together someone's life story, you kind of have to collect information from many sources and then put the puzzle pieces together to form kind of a more cohesive story. And I definitely had to do that for my dad. Despite being fairly popular and knowing many people, he was still a very private person. What I found is that everyone knew a little bit, but no one really knew everything. What I found was that even though the details were different depending on the person, everyone was basically on the same page. I think it says a lot about the consistency of his character that everyone kind of had similar things to say, although their perspective was a little different. In this episode, you'll hear from several people, including his siblings, his best friend, and his ex-wife, as we work through the early days of the barbershop and how he grew to become a household name in the city of Waterbury. Here's my mom discussing where the idea to open a barbershop began.
My name is Juanita Jones. I am the ex-wife of Tiny. Tiny and I had been married for about 22 years. He was working with Mr. Hoffler, and then his mom actually was the one that, was inspiring him to get his own barbershop. Okay. And so he got interested in it and was saying, I want my own barbershop, and then they found that small place on Cook Street. Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's important to clarify here because several people refer to this shop on Cook Street, but he actually had 2 shops on the same street. When he left Mr. Hoffler's barbershop, he got a small storefront location where he mostly worked alone. And then, as he gained more popularity, he decided to open a larger shop where he employed several barbers and where he remained for the next 30 years. Both shops were on Cook Street, just different parts. Here's his best friend Mark discussing what made him so successful early on as a barber in Waterbury.
My name is Mark Coles.
And how do you know my dad?
From grade school, from Wallace, probably before that, probably younger than that, in the boys club when his father used to take him. Like we said before, he liked drawing, and he took that into his style of cutting hair. Where he got the imaginary mind, I guess that's part of being an artist.
Yeah.
But if someone would come in with a picture, or even if they didn't have it, they just say what they wanted. He would take it from there. You know what I mean? A lot of people wanted their names in their head. A lot of people wanted, like back then, Michael Jordan, like him, this figurine of him,
The Air
Air
Jordan.
Jordan, or like I said, bricks, what is whatever, and that's what he gave him.
Mark, just like his siblings, talked about Tiny's innovative way to incorporate his artistic abilities into barbering. They all emphasized that he was the first to offer these creative haircuts in the city of Waterbury, like the whole city.
I'm Matthew Jones Jr., Matthew Tiny Jones Sr. was my dad. Yeah, dad was he was an artist. And so him doing haircuts, he would just draw in people's heads. The designs that he would come up with is like literal art, something he would draw on a piece of paper. The uh the pictures that I found is it, there's these designs. He's doing these in the early 80s, 90s. These guys are just now learning how to cut. They have been doing designs like that.
Honestly, I can't think of a better marketing tool, right? He was creating walking billboards by drafting custom masterpieces on each customer's head. Mark talked about how he quickly had crowds of people waiting for their turn in his chair.
It's just marvelous. It's just, to me, it's weird because when I would go to work and I have to be around 6, and Tiny don't be open up to like 9 or 10. It's like a Michael Jackson concert. People would just be parked out there, you know what I mean, making coffee runs or whatever. You know what I mean? So it was just wait. If I never see nobody wait for a barber that long.
Yeah,
you know
this
I mean?
was new. Like it never happened before.
It was beautiful. Like I said, I never for a barber. No, like a concert maybe. Yeah. No, I couldn't see it.
Yeah. So, and this was at the start, like when he was new, he was already having that effect.
Yes, well, he always had that effect, even when he was at Mr. Hoffler's.
Word about Tiny's unique style of barbering spread really quickly, and it wasn't just customers who were flocking to his shop. There were other barbers who were interested in working with him too. Here my mom talks about how this kind of played a role in him ultimately establishing himself in the bigger shop.
And then he got, I believe it was Jamal that was one of the first ones that started working with him in that barbershop, because he only had 2, first it was him for a long time by himself, and then he got another seat or whatever. And so then, it was so many people that started to come there. He was able to grow, and so then they was looking at like a food market, some type of food market, a deli where they sold meats and stuff in there. And so the guy was retiring, or he wanted to sell it because he was going to close it, and they looked into buying it. And so when they bought that, it had lots of more space. And so he was able to get more chairs. I can remember me, him, and his mother, we would go to like hotel liquidations and try to get stuff, cheaper rather than buying it outright. And so we did a lot of that. And then, he fixed it up, and he got the big barbershop going.
Okay, so when it comes to the other barbers, there's a lot of inconsistency between family members and friends about how they came to be. So some people said that a lot of these barbers were already established and really good at barbering, and so they wanted more access to customers in my dad's shop because he was bringing so many customers. Others say that some of them wanted to come and learn from him and weren't already established. In fact, they were apprentices. Did dad train these guys, or did they come in already knowing how to cut hair?
That I don't know 100% either. You know what I mean? The OGs could be telling me the same thing. Man, you lying. You don't even know. But I'm thinking that they all came. They just already had the talent. What I'm thinking. I don't think dad taught them, but I could be wrong.
Everybody is unclear. Like everyone that I've asked, they don't really know that part. So that's interesting. It's across the board. And maybe that has to do with him being so humble. Like he's not, oh yeah, I taught him everything he knows. Like he's not that kind of person. So maybe he did help them out, or maybe he didn't.
I do know what he did do to help everybody else. I think everybody was cutting under his license at one point in time. So they was all like apprentices, if I ain't mistaken. And then they changed the law where they all had to get their own license. I'm pretty sure that's how it went. So then everyone had to go get their own licenses. But yeah, I think they started underneath my dad's until the rule changed,
That makes
till
sense.
the law changed.
All in all, I think the truth is somewhere in between. I think some were already established and some were there to learn. Here's my Uncle Daniel talking about how he chose his barbers.
He picked and chose them. Like, yeah, you just didn't come in the Tiny. Tiny would put you in the chair next to him and see how you cut. And he had no problem getting rid of a barber. But barbers who were, decent, then he'd take them under his wing and, show them the ropes. But Tiny got rid of a lot of barbers. Yeah, that's fun. He got rid of them quick. He'd tell them, yeah, this ain't for you. He would try and they keep messing up heads. He said, yeah, this ain't for you.
But regardless of how they started, my dad was willing to give all of them a chance.
Hi, I'm Tyshell, and Tiny was my godfather. He was also my mentor at the barbershop. He let me finish my hours with cosmetology at his shop. I can't remember exactly how many hours I needed to finish, but once I was down of my 1,200 hours, he allowed me to finish at his shop under his license. And once I gained my own license, he became my mentor, helping me close hand in hand and showing me like the way of the business more so. Everything that I learned today was from Tiny. I ended up getting my own shop, and Tiny was able to work with me in my own salon. And so that was actually like a blessing to see that happen. I worked with him, and then he worked with me. So I'm always going to be happy for that.
Tyshell said something really important when talking about her time working with my dad. She said that he served as a mentor. That word really stuck with me. I had a general sense of what a mentor was, but I went ahead and looked it up just to be really clear. A mentor is defined as a wise and trusted counselor. Mentoring is not the same as teaching or coaching. Mentors provide high-level encouragement and guidance, which can include teaching, but is often not direct instruction for routine day-to-day work. So as I was reading this, I immediately thought about the conversation that I had with my brother about how we learned from our dad. He often led by example. He would just do whatever it was and do it consistently, and we would learn that way. He enjoyed when we liked what he liked, but he would also pay close attention to what we were interested in and try to find a way to support that. So for example, when I was young, I remember being really interested in science. And one year, he bought me a giant book of science experiments. And instead of directing me through every experiment, he would wait until I came to him to ask him for help or to explain how to do something in the book. His teaching style was very much aligned with mentorship, even when we were very young. Here's my brother talking about his experience in learning from our dad.
He was always teaching, he taught me by accident. He wasn't trying to. He just did him, and you could pick up his traits.
Okay, so you said that you used to learn from him without him teaching you. And I said the exact same thing. Like when I was talking to his brothers, I said he really was somebody who was a leader by example. Like he would, he would talk to you and teach you stuff that way. But I really felt like most of the things that I learned from him had nothing to do with him teaching me it.
Yeah, he made you have more common sense. Like me learning how to cut hair, he never took the clippers and made me hold it in my hand and guided me. It was just like I took his clippers one day and you know what I mean, and started cutting. And he seen me cutting Raphael's hair. He like, man, just visualize the line, man. Visualize a straight line and give him an edge up. That's how he taught me. Visualize the line. I know I'm think about my line, visualize it on Raphael's head, It gave him an edge up.
Now, earlier in the episode, I said it was unclear how so many other barbers ended up in the shop. But if we go back to what Daniel said, it makes a lot more sense. Regardless of if they knew what they were doing already or not, working at Tiny's barbershop was kind of a win-win. You could get access to a huge customer base and continue to improve your skills under the guidance of a master barber. He patiently guided you through every learned skill. Once you learned the skill and showed that you were good enough to be in his shop, you gained his trust. And that trust was not easily broken.
He trusted his barber so much that if he couldn't get me in, it was certain ones he would send me to. Like he would say, "Oh, go see Brandon, go see Paul." You know what I'm saying? That's how much he trusted his barbers, where he like, I can't do it, but they're going to do it just the same. You know what I mean? I respect their hand.
Okay, so it's clear that he was skilled as a barber and had a unique service to offer his customers. This led to a huge crowd of people heading to his barbershop on a daily basis. That skill, along with his strong leadership qualities, led to a flock of other barbers wanting to work in his shop. But he wasn't just influential in the barbershop. He was establishing himself as a staple in his community.
He was very involved with the community. Like everybody knew to bring their kids there for Halloween. I can remember when y'all were like, probably you were in kindergarten. I could remember, going there with your Halloween outfits and stuff. Remember he used to have candy ready for y'all because I said, I got them they're dressed and we're going to come by there. And he'd have it for the other kids too to come by there.
Yeah.
And then even during the holidays, we would go, me, him and his mother would go and buy gifts for his customers.
Yeah.
So he bought Christmas gifts for his customers. And then we would even decorate. We decorated, the place and everything. He was very involved, like I said, again, with the community. And that's why people loved him so much. Yeah. They loved him. Everybody knew Tiny.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you could own a business and just want to like drain the community.
Right.
Or you can do the opposite and spend a lot of time giving back to the community.
Yes.
And it seems like that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
He was not just interested in making money. He was trying to, be a part of something.
Exactly.
And it worked. There's a reason I started this series with the brass sitting. Waterbury was in my father's DNA. It was and is so tied to who he was as a person, in shaping his identity as a child, and in being an important part of the community as an adult. My father loved Waterbury. He loved the neighborhoods, the restaurants, the parks, the lakes, and all the people. And that was obvious in the way that he interacted with his customers. Here's his sister Pebbles talking about the customer experience.
And one of the things that, Tiny did that a lot of barbers don't do today, or even just during the time period he didn't rush in your hair.
No.
You went in to get a haircut, you were getting a haircut because he put all of it into it and he didn't rush. And at the same time, he's talking to you. He wants to know how you're doing. What are you into? How are your kids doing? Oh, they're playing ball. Do they want to play ball here? I got a little team. See, he did things for the community, but he also served the community as someone you can go in and you can talk to. And he's not going to give you nonsense. He's giving you honest, felt advice on something, or he's at least giving you something to think about, because he was just self-sacrificing when it came to that. That's just the person that he was. And as a result, you could see there was a time how his barbershop just continuously thrived and thrived. And even after he'd slowed down from getting sick, he still had regular people that came in there all the time, talking and getting advice from him.
His brothers agreed that he had a really special way of making every person who sat in his chair and came into his shop feel like they were important and welcome at his shop.
I used to go to him. Tiny was like Dr. Phil of Brook Street, because you could go and get advice, and Tiny was straightforward. He ain't gonna give you all the sunny advice. He gonna tell you if you're wrong, and he'll keep telling you wrong, man. You know you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. So Tiny kept it 100. He'll tell you the truth if you like it or not.
Just one other little thing. Every time I would come to town and I would stop by the shop,
He'd always say, "Hey, what's up? What's good?" And we would just sit there and talk, and he'd be there sitting there cutting hair, and we would just kind of go back and forth on what was going on with him. Nothing really deep, but I would let him know what was going on with me, and we chat, and every time I'd see him, it would be like there'd been no time that passed. We just kind of picked up where we left off.
Even the kids with their first haircuts. Usually it's hard for, parents to get their kids to calm down, but Tiny used to cut them. Used to talk to them. That's one thing I could say. Tiny remembered everyone's birthday. Everyone's. And their kids' birthdays. Everyone's. He didn't forget no one's birthday.
Daniel's right about the birthdays. He had a calendar near the shop phone that was close to his chair, and it was filled with birthdays. Every year when he bought a new calendar, he would go through and input all the birthdays again so he didn't miss anyone. This wasn't a business tactic. It was something he actually enjoyed because his customers were much more than customers to him. The connection they felt in his shop was real because it was coming from a genuine place. Here's his best friend Mark talking about my dad's honesty as a businessman.
For him, it wasn't even the artistry was beautiful, but the blends and the taper, and he'll tell you, he said, listen, if you go somewhere else and get your hair cut, he ain't gonna be mad, but he knows someone did it,
right?
Because he knows his work,
right?
And he used to be like, yo, Coles, where you go? I'm like, yo, well, I stayed in your shop, but somebody else did it. You know what I mean? I'm like, he knew. So
he could tell right away.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If it was his work or someone else.
Oh, definitely. He definitely know a lot of things that he had to tell everyone, and a lot of barbers still doing that. I know I don't go. It's the hairline.
Yeah.
A lot of them cut the hairline back for it could grow in quicker, but it could come back.
Oh,
Tiny never did that.
Yeah.
Tiny kept it right there, so if your hair grew up, you know what I mean? You still can be at the headline. Yeah. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. I do know what you mean,
yeah. So, if you cut it back, it's going to look weird when it grows in, but yeah.
So that means you got her to get back to the barbershop, but that wasn't Tiny, you know what I mean? And this hair could last 2 weeks. Some people, as soon as they cut in, the hairs are going to be back in 3 days or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, yes. Like I say, he cared about his customers.
I was going to say like, that's exactly what it is. It's like being considerate.
Yes.
Even in that way when you really don't have to. Like, I mean, he's a businessman, but if you were like that real businessman, you could get, you could take advantage of people.
Of course.
And he didn't do that.
No.
Okay, so Mark has introduced yet another core character trait. And before I talk about that, I want to share something about myself. I consider myself an entrepreneur, but I also hate the idea of owning a business. Like having to market yourself and schmooze with people who you don't actually care about just to ensure the success of whatever business goal you have. But recently, I talked to a business advisor who told me not to stress about doing everything by the book when starting a business. That stuff is great, but it's not about the business or the product. It's about you. You could have the best product in the world, but most of the time, your customers are going to keep coming back for you. Over the course of the last 2 episodes, we've introduced several of my dad's core character traits. And I'm realizing now that they play a huge role in how he became so successful so quickly as a young barber. There was obviously the artist, which generated a great product and service. He was also patient, taking his time to perfect his work, which produced excellent quality haircuts. But he was also patient with younger barbers who benefited from his leadership as a master barber. He had a strong sense of identity and a commitment to telling the truth, which made him an excellent mentor and advisor. And now Mark points out that he had integrity. He had a way of cutting hair and he stuck to it, even if it didn't necessarily benefit him in the short term as a business owner. All of these core traits made it easy for people to trust his business and to trust him as an individual. And as a result, business was booming. And he found himself becoming somewhat of a celebrity, not only in the city of Waterbury, but in the entire state of Connecticut.
It was a celebrity to me. because everywhere I went, they called me Tiny Son, so I was popular everywhere. I go to North End Rec, I'm getting treatment from the people, good treatment, because that's Tiny Son right there. Give him a snack. That's Tiny Son.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
felt the same. Coming up on the next episode of the Beauty for Ashes podcast, we'll take a closer look at what it looked like to be Tiny's son and daughter, and taking a closer look at some of the aspects of his life that were outside of the barbershop. I hope you've enjoyed the story up until this point, and I can't wait to see you all in the next episode of the Beauty for Ashes podcast.